Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Sweet Spot.
We are your hosts.
I'm Diane.
And I'm Michael Pinball Clemens.
And we are so excited to be here today.
The Sweet Spot really is joy unspeakable, having balance in all you do.
It's being grateful, even when things aren't great. The desire to help others when you may be hurting yourself.
It is submission to a sovereign God who is in control when things look good or bad.
The Sweet Spot means happy times are happier, challenging times are growth opportunities, and love is the ruler of the day.
The Sweet Spot is resting and sometimes wrestling in the arms of the Almighty.
Simply put, if you're in your sweet spot, you're probably abiding in the fruits of the Spirit.
Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
So we hope you join us as we take this journey and engage in topics that we hope will inspire,
encourage,
challenge,
uplift,
excite,
insight,
refresh,
restore,
revitalize,
comfort,
stimulate,
and strengthen each of you in your daily walk.
Welcome to The Sweet Spot.
Welcome today, and Diane, we have a very special guest who has joined us today. We're so happy to have our good friend, Shelley Austin here. Big round of applause, Shelley! Yeah, so thank you for being here and joining us today. And so we're going to just get a little bit about your story, about professional athletes and what it's like to be a celebrity and growing up in that whole sort of thing. I say growing up because there starts a place, and your life really, we talk about growing up as being from a child, from a kid to an adult, but there's a big growing curve when you first kind of develop that strong relationship and you find that significant other and you grow through all of these things, including kids, as life progresses. And so we want to just have a chat with you, but first I should just say welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, we are so happy to have you. And I'd like to maybe begin. You are the wife of Kent Austin, the leader of the Hamilton Ticats, the head coach and general manager of the Ticats, and maybe talk a little bit about how you met first.
Or what I like to say is Kent is the husband of Shelley Austin.
All right, I've been doing correctly. Now that's the sweet spot.
Now, there we go.
My new 50-year-old.
Yes.
So, yes, Kent and I actually grew up in Brentwood, Tennessee, and high school there, and just had mutual friends, both athletes, and both were Christians. And
well, tell us a little bit about your athletic identity.
so I was a runner, track person, hurdler, long jumper, high jumper. And the joke is he married me for my genetics.
And funny enough, as long as we've known you, I never knew that. I
Really?
never knew that you were a track and field star.
Well, I was, I was a
Star,
star in high
yes.
school. When I got to university, it kind of evened out. But yeah, so I was a track person, and Kent was a football player. And even though we weren't in high school at the same time, we had mutual friends. And after Kent won the Grey Cup in '89 for Saskatchewan, I was actually coaching at my high school, the track team, and just getting back involved in our alma mater. We loved our high school that we went to. And he was there getting ready to go back to training camp. It was the spring of '90. And I'd seen him and known him, but didn't think much of him, honestly. And I saw him, and I was like, I am going to marry that guy. Like, literally, a voice in my head said, that's your husband.
Yes.
My husband had the same thought when he first saw me.
And we started dating and got married a year later.
A year later? Wow. Now, you say you guys were both Christian when you met. How young were you when you accepted the Lord?
Funny enough, we were both at the same Baptist church and didn't know each other because he was in the senior high group and I was in the junior high group. And I became a Christian at the age of 12 at an FCA camp on Black Mountain.
Okay.
But then I walked down the aisle when I was probably 13 at Forest Hill Baptist Church. And I remember like being baptized and really feeling God's presence at that point. And Kent was about the same age.
And so for many of those who may not know, I know growing up in the old Southern Baptist Church, when you walk down the aisle is at the end of service, every service they would do a call, right? And now we I don't know about you, but we would sing the same song every Sunday. Yeah,
just as I am.
Without one plea.
Get up. And I finally have the courage to do it. And it's like professing your faith to the rest of the congregation that I accept Jesus as my personal Lord and Savior.
That's right.
Yes. Well, that's beautiful. So, did that guide your relationship early on?
Oh, absolutely. We actually looked at each other's like diaries, and he'd written stuff like, "I still haven't met the one. She has to love God," and I was writing similar things. And that was certainly, I mean, when you first meet and you're young and good looking, I thought he was hot. And I wanted to kiss him, but he had a heart for God.
Yes.
And that is what I loved the most about him.
And how old were you when you met?
We were 24.
Okay.
I was 24, he was 27, because we're 3 years, and then we married at 25 and 28.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
That's great. So then, you both are, accomplished. You both are educated. You both are Christians. Like, this must have been easy then. This relationship as you grew here, this must have been easy.
Well, I'll tell you the story. Kent Austin was the star quarterback in Regina, Saskatchewan.
Yes.
And I was a girl from Brentwood, Tennessee, living my little life. I was a nanny. I was in school part-time. I was waitressing. I was just kind of doing anything and everything. Right. Didn't really have a purpose at that time except being young and seeking God. And we got married, and a week later we left for training camp. And we arrived in Regina, and I literally had no idea that he was this celebrity superstar quarterback. Like, he was just Ken Austin, Brentwood Academy graduate, went to Ole Miss. Like, when we got there, it was on the news that he'd gotten married, because we got married a day in a 24-hour period. And I was like, what have I gotten myself into?
Wow.
And it was not easy. It was, what have I done? This was a huge mistake.
So most people think now you get married, you've got a good-looking guy, a smart guy, he plays for professional sports, he's the star, he's the guy, and now they put my wedding on TV, I've made it.
No, I'm like, this is no one's business, and I felt very isolated. I had no friends or family around. My only connection would have been the other wives who I just showed up. They didn't know me.
Right.
They didn't know we were getting married. There was no engagement period. And it was, and then I started, you're like, where am I? I felt like I was literally on a different planet. So, and we had one car. I would be in this little apartment with no friends. He would go to practice, and I would wait. We didn't have cell phones. I would walk around with our dogs. Thank God I had my little dogs. I love dogs.
Yes, I do.
I would take my dogs for a walk and wait for him to come home. And if he was 15 minutes later than I expected, I was, where have you been? It was rough.
Yes.
But at the same time, it made us go, okay, this is a commitment.
Right.
I love you. And we started relying on each other in a beautiful way.
So was it the difference between growing up in Tennessee and now being in a different country and being in Saskatchewan, in a province that is really like a small community where things they're very passionate and into everything, but everybody also with that kind of gets into your business a little bit. What was the one or two things that were most difficult?
Definitely the anonymity. We couldn't go to A&W. We loved we couldn't go to Tim Hortons without someone recognizing him, and I didn't comprehend that before we arrived. And I literally had no idea. And just being in a foreign country, like the grocery store, like where is the Jif peanut butter?
Yes,
Right.
And why is chicken $28? It was a really tough transition.
Right.
I remember going to the grocery store the first time and driving. I'm like, just everything's in French and I don't know where I'm going. But I went to the grocery store and I came home with bread and some kind of weird peanut butter I'd never, Kraft peanut butter. And I wouldn't buy anything else because I couldn't believe the difference in prices. And it was just a lot.
All right. So how long did it take you to get comfortable?
I think probably by the time we got here,
Okay.
when we met.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
That was when I was like starting, because we'd go back to Nashville and come back. And then we had our baby. We got pregnant about 4 months into our marriage. Of course, and the joke was, I was lonely and I missed a few pills. Because we're in Saskatchewan. And I know his mom and sister were like counting, when did they get married? And I'm just being honest.
Yes.
And so Kendall was born in June of '92. And then you become a little family, and
Right.
she added so much joy to our life. And we got traded to BC, and then we got traded to Toronto.
Yay!
And we were together with y'all and Georgie
Right.
Georgie and Steve Kearns.
Good times.
That's when I started going, okay, this is a beautiful way of life, and God has a purpose in this. But the first few years were a struggle to find what was happening, and
Sounds like having babies was one source of comfort. That was one step, right? Was that Kendall and that was sort of the first, was that the first big step?
yes.
And then the second step would be what then?
Realizing that as a team in this professional football career, that we could impact others for Jesus and use that platform. I remember one of the most proud moments is when Kent spoke at a pro-life meeting. This was before we had Kendall. And going, okay, you can, instead of this being a scary thing or a feeling awkward about it, we can actually turn this around and use this in a positive way if we stick together and we are, clinging to God, like the way that you two have.
Now, let me ask you this. Being a wife of a professional athlete as well, you and I have a lot in common, and our stories are very similar. But in speaking with a lot of athletes' wives, their stories are similar as well. And you always hear them say, they're uprooted from wherever they were, taken to another state, country, whatever that might be, surrounded by people that they don't know. And then you hear them say there was a point where they went through a period where there was resentment.
Oh, yes.
There was a lot of resentment, and they had a hard time finding their identity.
Yes.
Figuring out who they were. Did you have any of that?
Oh, yeah. In our whole Bible study this past year, the most darling group of girls with the Tie Cats has been about that. And just knowing that you're not the only one who feels like that. Because everyone thinks, oh, you're so this and that.
You're so lucky.
Inside, you're lonely and you're away from anyone you know.
Right.
To have that group of women that say, I'm here with you. Let's go to lunch. Let's go to have a play group. We've got to study the Word. God has a purpose for you. I certainly, in Saskatchewan probably, I was very resentful.
Right.
That I was living a life I didn't realize I signed up for.
Right. Yeah, and I identify with that, so I get that.
Well, we would know from the outside all of these things were going on, and it's so wonderful to see how you have become this leader of your own. When I asked Kent to coach for the Toronto Argonauts, I told him a big reason why I wanted him was not just that he was a great friend and so smart and a great coordinator and really understood offense, but that you came with him, that you were a leader. When did you begin to take a leadership role with the wives and even the team and the greater community?
I think probably in not 95 when we came the first time, but
Yes.
when we came back and Kent was
You
your
came
offensive
back.
coordinator.
That's right. Yeah.
And I started realizing, like, all these wives feel displaced. So I started having Bible study in Port Credit
That's right.
and realizing there is a need. And it's so easy just to kind of feel sorry for yourself and get caught up in your own our kids were little then, but there was a need. So probably then when you brought us here.
Well, I saw that already in you. So I already saw you doing that. And so I think you were leading before you knew it.
I think
Yes.
I'm a nurturer.
Very much so, Shelley.
So
yes.
I might have done things like helped organize something, but Georgie Kearns also was a huge influence to kind of help her.
Can we tell people who Georgie is, right? Because they might not know.
Georgie and Steve Kearns are Athletes in Action chaplain, and his wife is like the female version, and they work with the Argonauts. They worked with the Raptors. They
That's
worked with the
right.
Blue Jays
That's
back in
right.
the 90s when we were
That's
with
right.
them. And they are now with the Ticats. And she discipled me when we first got married.
Yeah.
She's just been a constant, like you two have, Christian leader, come alongside you and build you up.
That's right.
And she still hosts Bible study at my house.
Absolutely. And Georgia was the same for me when I came. Same feeling lonely, didn't have family. And
I remember meeting you at your apartment with
That's
Georgie.
right, with Georgie. That's
Yep.
right. She took me under her wing and she started taking me to Bible study. And she is the one that pushed me out to do my testimony for the first time. I was terrified. I cried, and I every excuse you can make up, I
like
made
when
up.
I was driving here right now.
That's right. And Georgie kept saying, she encouraged me, Diane, you have a story to tell. Don't be afraid. You can do this. And she is the one that pushed me and allowed me, to have that platform to start sharing my story.
Wow.
And so Georgie, she's amazing. She's amazing.
And on the flip side of that, if I can say a little bit about Steve, he is Mr. Consistency. He's always there.
Absolutely.
He doesn't push himself on you. He doesn't force anything. He doesn't try to say, you got to do this or you have to do that. He's just always there. He's present. And his presence offers you in. And at some point, when you're ready, you'll talk and you'll engage. And so they are just wonderful people. So Steve and Georgie, we love you so
Yes.
much.
Yes,
and,
we do.
And you have
Big
helped so
shout
many
out.
of us, and we don't say thank you enough. So
That's right.
hugs, high fives, we love you.
Yes.
You're awesome and special. So let's talk about big moments,
Okay.
right? So we've talked about, maybe pro sport isn't all it seems to be from the outside, but there are some really
absolutely.
fun moments. So talk about the moments that provided the greatest joy for you while Kent was playing.
Well, Kent was playing. Ooh, well, I came after he won the Grey Cup. He had a different
Yes.
girlfriend then.
But we won't talk about that.
That's another story. I was very proud of Kent. He won some awards. I loved going to the games, and I loved to see him doing what he loved. He won the Grey Cup in '93, but he was injured. So I remember that celebration because Kendall was little. He had separated his shoulder, but actually we found out later he had actually a broken clavicle that they misdiagnosed. I remember small moments like a victory and him, passing an amazing pass to Ray Elgard or Jeff
Right.
Fairholm. I remember little moments like that, but
That happened like 2,000 times.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, real God.
Well,
Jeff,
those
they
guys
were
were
amazing.
amazing. They
Yeah,
were.
They were, and wow, could he? We say that he was throwing handoffs because it was just like he was handing it
he
to
was
him.
good.
The ball was just right on the
Yeah.
mark, just phenomenal. So I'm sorry.
But I think that probably with maturity and more understanding, the biggest moments that stand out to me are when he started coaching.
Yes, all right.
Oh, really?
Good.
Because I really felt like he was supposed to coach and encouraged him
Right.
to start coaching because we were living in Nashville full time and we had 3 small children. And he said, no. And I was like, I really feel like God is leading you to do this. And so he worked 1 year as the Ottawa quarterback coach.
Yes.
And then you hired him as offensive coordinator,
Yes.
and we went to the Grey Cup
Mm-hmm.
and won in Ottawa.
That's right. That's
Yes.
And that was just like, oh my goodness, that happened like so quick. And then he got fired, and at the time we were like, what's going on? And then he got to be the head coach in Saskatchewan and go back to this amazing place.
So now you say he got fired. She's very soft. I fired him.
mean it like
Yes.
that.
No.
I don't know. So he didn't quit.
But we need to have honesty here, right? So I fired
Yes.
him.
Yes.
So
And it was such a blessing.
yeah, and it was the hardest day of my coaching life, and he had to console me because I was boohoo crying.
It was a mess. It
Yeah,
was
so
just a mess.
and I said, listen, what you need here is a break. Right? I'm not going to let them blame this on you. This is not your fault. We had Ricky Williams at the time, and I had held them off for about 6 weeks. And at this point, I says, I'm not going to let them blame this. But you need to know that if you're ready, I will bring you back at the end of the season. All you need is a break. We talked about that at the time. I don't know if it's ever happened before, but at the end of the season, right, if we can get into the playoffs, I would be willing to bring you back,
Wow.
right? But you need to know that you will be restored, right? And so we had that conversation. And, on the other side of that, I'm not sure how much of that he heard because I was letting him go.
When you say,
Yes,
exactly. You're like, I'm pretty sure I'm getting fired.
So, yes.
But it turned out to be
Yes.
God had a plan. He was
That,
offered the head coaching job in Saskatchewan, and we went and won the Grey Cup
Yes.
his first year.
That's right.
Yes.
That was amazing.
And that
Yes.
was like, okay, God, I think that you're doing something here. And that would be the year too. I feel like I really took a leadership role with that club and started doing some things that they hadn't done for the wives and the families, and it became a true family atmosphere. And I think that's carried over into Hamilton as well. We did go to the NCAA for a few years.
Yes.
After Saskatchewan, you went to Ole Miss.
That's what I
And
was
how
about to
how was
say,
that
yeah.
experience? What's between the two?
It
Yes.
was an amazing opportunity. I mean, you win the Grey Cup and then your alma mater that you were the star quarterback
That's
at Ole Miss
right.
calls.
Yes.
It's like, are you kidding me?
Yes.
This isn't real. This
Right.
cannot be real.
Right.
This cannot really be happening. I loved it. I loved being in Mississippi, but these were college players. There were no wives. There was one wife. And I mean, I did as much as I could with her, but there were a lot of NCAA rules.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
I
things
wasn't
you couldn't
allowed
do.
to do some things. I wasn't allowed to give
Right.
her a ride. I wasn't allowed to buy her some groceries because it infringed on the rules of the NCAA.
Right.
So I had to take a step back. But it offered us an opportunity to spend time with Kent's mother, who
Yes.
became very ill and passed away.
That's right.
And we were able
That's
to,
right.
she moved in with us, and we were able to share her last few months with her. So that was a huge, amazing blessing.
That was it.
And you saw God weaving all of that in such a beautiful way.
God's timing, isn't it? It's amazing how many times that happens when.
Yeah,
yes,
you don't know what's going on at the time, but wow, how could that have worked out couldn't have worked out any more better without God's hand on it.
That's right.
A guy that took care of us, Kent and I, for several years, Jerry Townend, who was a therapist, and he moved to Ottawa. There was an opening with the Ottawa Senators, and he moved to Ottawa, and big change for him, and it was a bold change, but he actually got a chance to spend the last 2 years with his father before he passed away.
Right.
It's amazing on God's timing, and as we change and do things, he knows.
He sure
Yeah.
does.
A lot of times we don't see it,
We don't.
but he's orchestrating everything, to work for the good,
Yeah.
right? So,
So we've had a behind the scenes look at professional sport and understanding that it's not always what it's cracked up to be, right? But tell us, what do you believe makes for a fulfilled life?
Oh, wow. The only thing that I have found fulfilling, truly fulfilling, is knowing my God, reading His Word, and loving other people.
couldn't say it any better than that.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
Jesus says, the greatest thing you can do is love.
Mm-hmm.
And that, even in your desperation or your sorrow, if you can just do that, get out of yourself and just be kind to someone like you both are, and your whole Just Give campaign starts soon, just to be kind. That is the most healing thing we can do, because that's God's spirit. God is love, and when we exemplify that and we're kind to others, we feel God's love.
We just talked about God sort of knowing things before they happen, and that was really on the sweet spot today. The emphasis, sort of what I had written down, was 1 Peter 3:8 to 12, and he talks a lot about Philadelphia. And that is brotherly love. We know it is the city, but that is brotherly love. And in there, two things I believe that stand out are relationships, right? And being at peace with people. Cultivating great relationships and being at peace. If you are listening, please write down 1 Peter 3:8 to 12, and maybe even you can read a little bit before and a little bit after there, but really does talk about those, what I would say, 5 character qualities. Harmony, right? So living harmoniously, right? Trying to develop good relationships, being sympathetic, right? Being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, exercising that brotherly love, right? We are our brother's keeper, and being kind-hearted, right? And having a humble spirit. So those are our 5, I think, key things that we want to talk about today. Again, being harmonious, sympathetic, brotherly, exercising that brotherly love, being kind-hearted, and having a humble spirit. And I believe it is in those things that we do cultivate good relationships and live a full life. It's not about playing for a professional organization or teaching school, right? Both can be great, both can be difficult. It is what we do and who we are, how we cultivate relationships. And I mean, we can make all the money in the world, right? If we have antagonistic relationships that exist, our life is probably going to look the same way.
And Shelley, if I can ask one last question. Today, I know, we're veterans in this game, and, you're a vet with being a player's wife, and now a coach's wife. And now your role now on the Hamilton Tiger Cats, with all these young people coming in, all these young wives coming in, they're young, they're in their early 20s, and they're snatched up from their, where they've grown up and around their families, brought to a place where they're not familiar with. What is or what could be your biggest impact for them, and how can you help guide them so that their journey maybe is a little bit easier?
I think encouraging them that they're not alone, that God has a purpose for them to be here, and that God loves them. And if I can be vulnerable with them and share that I have felt the exact same way, I think that helps to guide them, that there's hope, that God does have his hand on them, and if they choose, because it is a choice, to choose God, that they can glorify God through their life as a professional athlete's wife as well.
Well, you've heard it from Ms. Shelley Austin. We thank you so much for being our guest here today. And like we always love to end our session with Mr. Edward Everett's. I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. What I can do, I ought to do, and what I ought to do, by the grace of God, I will do. Until next time, stay in your sweet spot.
Woo! Do your best to be at peace with all men.
Oh, that's good. Does that count on the QEW?